Yo, big shouts out to the human family alive for the present and the future. Might be listening to the sound of my voice. Hope you're loving yourself and all persons and non-persons, animals, flora and fauna. 100% of what it takes to be a part of this thing we call life. So, I'm going to be very brief. I didn't mean to come in and do a whole lot of like chit chat kind of deal. Um, I don't even know if this is going out because I'm not really used to it just yet. But shout out to the YTBC, the YouTube box community, and all the people who spend their energy and their money um, supporting the sport and the business of boxing. All right, check this out. All right, anybody who knows me knows what is it? I enjoy a spirited back and forth over subjects, right? Over a particular topic, great and small. You know, I'm an adherent of the Bushido when it comes to that. Treat small matters like they're great and great matters like they're small. More often than not, I don't 100% of the time. I also believe everything should be in moderation, including moderation. And towards that end, I think um, it's time for me to make yet another video, one of my infrequent uh, additions to the playback game and to the live, the culture of streaming live. I didn't do a premiere or anything or like notify or notification or anything because this isn't necessarily about a back and forth. This is just like my thoughts on a particular subject. But if people would come across this and they come in, that's cool too. Hold on, let me make sure. Okay, cool. I'm in the right spot. Um, yeah, guys. So peep game. Recently, there's been another foray the uh, into the sphere of having debates in the boxing community, and the home of this the new home of this very old idea, like this cultural. I feel like a very necessary cultural mainstay in the YTBC is the back and forth. And we've seen guys really make their bones essentially off of like boxing debates being huge now and all this stuff. But yeah, it comes and goes. Some people host them. They've been uh, they've been what is it? I think people have been more consistent than others in the keeping up the whole like culture of boxing debate. But essentially, there's just ebbs and flows, there's peaks and valleys, and for a long time, it's been a while since we had somebody who felt like they would value this kind of like back and forth and this kind of discourse. Um, and shout out to all the ones that came before. I've held the belt, Zone 6, wherever you are. And then, I got it from the guy who abdicated the throne, Phil, wherever you are. Shout outs to you, whatever. The wind beneath my wings. But on a straight up note, the new home, uh, my guy, Knockout Boxing. Listen, I can't say enough positive things about Knockout Boxing. And whatever negative things I may have to say about knockout boxing become like insignificant and petty under the weight and the breadth of all of the positive things I have to say about him. So I'm not even going to go into enumerating any of that stuff. I'm just going to say, like every human being, I have things to say that are both positive, that are both praising and critical of everything that I come in contact with. um I mean, listen, if you want to see, I won't even tell you, and I'm not even go there. I'm not even gonna go there. Let's stay on track. Let's stay on track with this whole like judges in the Bible. um we all know I can be long-winded, and maybe you might not like the drone of my tone, right? But you might find it soothing. You might find it easier to get through your day. To focus on other things other than the task at hand. So, or this might be just an addition to you completing the task at hand. Right, knockout boxing, home of the new debate series. My one of my favorite things going in the YTBC. Right. And for all you guys that don't know me, I'm not engaged in social media at all. I'm on the fun side of 50. Like, I'm not trying to hang out, like meet my classmates from fucking elementary school. I'm not trying to like run into like my kids and all that other shit and their friends on the goddamn on these social media streets. Sorry. I like what I like when it comes to social media, and that happens to be 100% happens to be the sport of boxing. What? So as a retired person with a lot of like free time or on my hands, well, yeah, a lot compared to most people. Um, you know, I get to indulge in my hobbies, and boxing being the thing that the hobby I indulge in when it on social media. Um, I feel like I might have a different perspective, a little bit more objective perspective than a lot of people who engage from time to time. You have your trolls who are trying to work out whatever personal demons they have on a particular topic. You have your streamers who are trying to make sure that they don't have to answer to a boss other than their own creativity and their own inspiration. Um, and you have hardcore enthusiasts of a subject and people who are on the pathway to be a hardcore enthusiast of a subject. And towards that end, we have what I think is priceless and inextricably linked to anybody's edification and refinement when it comes to their knowledge of a sport. um, and that is the back and forth discourse you have between other adherents of the topic. um and towards that end, oh listen, oh man, we have one guy, 1-2 kid, peace to you. Yeah, for all of you guys who may be coming in to the chat, I may shout you out as soon as you come in, depends on where I am in my train of thought. But 1-2 kid, you are ready. Yeah, we've been going back and forth at it for years. So any of you new booties that may show up and say and may think that the shots being fired are maybe a little bit too hostile, or maybe a little bit too soft for the response, just understand that you're coming in probably midstream in a conversation that we've been having for years. All right, back to the point. What's up, Bruce Gas? Geez, I got to stop right here. Yeah, I'm not ready to extol the virtues of Bruce Gas at this moment. But just so you know, for anybody who may come in and you don't know each other, uh, subscribe to each other's content. I think you'll enjoy it. All right, back to the subject. Edification, right? For the boxing fan specifically. I was speaking general, but really this is about specifically the boxing fan. The way that I learned boxing, the way I was introduced to it was through my dad. But the way that I really got my path to the knowledge that I have right now is because of my brother from another mother, who was part of the '92 Olympic team, and from we fought in smokers, he fought in trials, got into the Olympic team, got kicked off for knocking out Oscar De La Hoya, right? But he's trained with with the Nonito brothers, Train Reward. This is Oakland's own, right? But it was through him that I got a understanding not just of what it means to be a fan of a particular boxer, but what boxers go through, like what the technical thing is, from a jab to a L step to a to the way judging works, right? The entire 360 degrees of that. I started that conversation in like 1993, and it continues today, and it's expanded to the conversation we're having today, right? So for me, my own personal edification has come through this discourse that I've had over multiple decades with someone who is more knowledgeable than I am. But through that whole point, I've come to interact with people who are is as knowledgeable as I am or less knowledgeable, right? And I think the entire thing is priceless, and I think it's necessary for the development of a boxing fan, and I think it's an integral part of what makes the YTBC absolutely a must-have companion to your boxing experience. My own discovery to the YTBC came on the Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, and I just wanted to get perspectives about people's like thoughts of the thing. And I like at that point, I literally talked to like maybe two or three people about boxing, and only one person that actually understood the sport. Right when I came across the thing, so I always knew that Manny Pacquiao was never going to fucking beat Floyd Mayweather, but I had nobody to talk about what my thought process was with, and I came across the YTBC in that regard. Um, but I didn't actually become a member then. I felt like I became a member of the community in 2017 once that same guy decided he was going to make a channel and he wanted me to do the business part and help him with the operations part. And I'm not even going to go to like the details of my private life of why I would be a good choice or a good choice for him, right? Under those circumstances. But anyway, I didn't understand really what was going on, so I came onto the YTBC. I joined a couple of channels, and now here we are, 5 years later. So yeah, that's a sort of a brief synopsis of my kind of my origin story, right? And where I come, like why I support what Knockout is doing, what a plethora, like a whole host of people have been doing for years now. D Style had a couple back and forth, Haplo's an old head in the game. We can keep going on and on and on with the guys. Wayne, the guy that I had a debate with over Floyd Mayweather. I don't even know. It's a couple years ago. It feels like at this point. But anyway, back to the point. The purpose of the debate, right? I think is for me is all about again becoming a more sophisticated and refined fan of the sport and knowledgeable fan of the sport. And I don't think that there's any reasonable substitute for debate in that sense, right? And that's how it relates to the YTBC. But like, if you understand really what debate is about, right? There's two kinds of things when it comes to debate. You could either be a search for truth, or it could be for rhetorical efficacy. And by that I mean persuade, right? It's either find truth or to persuade, right? Regardless of what the truth is. And that's just the nature of debate, right? Those are your options going in, and you can figure out what your own interest in that is, right? And towards that end, you may find a judge or a chat interested in the truth, or interested in just to persuade you into their particular perspective, regardless of what the truth is. That's just the nature of it. And that's and that may be the bias that we all come to debate with, or at least the understanding we should all have when we come into a debate, right? But yeah, when it comes to the knockout series, right? It's the reason why I'm making this video is because I not only have I participated in the debate, I've now participated in the judging of the debate. I've debated twice. I judged once, and I've had my own personal feelings about judging this particular series, the knockout version of the YouTube community's boxing debates. Um, and I've now heard a bunch of people's perspectives on it. And I think that before it becomes more fractious than it already has been, and we get into these like internecine conflicts, um, I'll speak. I'll give my own like kind of thoughts on the subject, and it'll have the reach that it has. I don't really do content that often, and yada 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 yada. So yeah, when it comes to judging the knockout series, um, I think first thing to acknowledge is that it's a very new series, and is undergoing a bunch of change. Right, where it started was there was no time limit, right? Even so, it was kind of impossible to like either judge or even like sit through from my perspective, because who knew what the point? There was too many goddamn points, and you never knew when it was going to end. Like I was going in and out. I'm going to be perfectly honest. It's about my own personal experience, about the first ones, right? And I appreciate all the pioneers that are doing it, and I feel like we're still in the pioneer stage of the knockout thing, and I hope that he doesn't become too disheartened by the feedback surrounding, or the negative feedback surrounding the current state of affairs, right? Because as it gets popular, people are going to have their opinions about the direction that it should go, like while it's still in its embryonic phase of like figuring out what it's going to be. All right. So anyway, so yeah, we're still figuring it out. It's still in the pioneer stage, and it's no longer time limits. It's now a timed. You can go back and forth, or whether or not it's too much time. I personally, I'd like the time. I'm not necessarily opposed to the time limit. I've heard any number of I've heard a number of suggestions about how to, pardon me, about how we should probably, adjust the judging. But as it stands right now, I'll just say what the judging is. Right now, the judging is knockout. Decides who the judges is based on his criteria. I think it's like a first come first serve kind of thing, and I think he weeds out bias as he determines bias. And I don't know that I necessarily agree with that or disagree with it. I haven't gone there with him, but I feel as though I find it strange that he would I don't know what his process of inclusion is, given what his process of exclusion he's expressed at this point, right? So it seems like he's trying to weed out the biased, but to me, he's not really doing a good. Like it's a kind of a superficial kind of thing, and it may just be him talking shit to people, like fine. It may be all like just entertainment and like memes and lols and like jokes kind of thing. I'm not quite sure what's going on with the who gets to be a judge, like full disclosure. But that's the one thing. Knockout, I think, decides the judges. The second part of it is it's Knockout's channel, right? And he's put a premium, he put a value, not a premium, but he put a value on the chat participation and people who support the channel's participation. And I think that is commendable. I support that like wholeheartedly, while recognizing the pitfalls when it comes to like objective judging. I think at that point you may have to give on one hand to get on the other. And I think for the purposes that I've already laid out, like the fact that this thing is really supposed to be about culture and refinement, not necessarily about, somebody's biased views about who won a thing, who won a, a discourse. Um, so yeah, I like the chat participation, and to just talk about the chat participation a little bit, like why you'd be giving what you'd be giving up, the objective judging. Depending on who the debaters are, they may have a larger community, and they may not be interested so much in the truth. They may be interested just in the rhetoric, right? And for the uninitiated, right, the naive, the people who aren't at least as sophisticated as the chat or the debaters, they may be led astray. They may come away with a um, with a skewed perspective of what's actually happening in the sport, right? So with that, all that saying, all that being there, that is one of the major pitfalls, and I think that's the thing that people object to most is the lack of objectivity that is coming from the chat. Right. So far, that's what I'm hearing when it comes to this whole judging thing. Um, but yeah, um, to all of that, I will to talk about everyone's concerns, and let me just check out the chat right quick. Um, Let me say peace to everybody real fast. Oh shit, we got Tommy. We got what's up, Tommy? We got Nanook. We got Nanook Frigus. Don't know who that is. We got OTB. Um, yeah. What's up, OTB? Yeah, what's up, OTB? So again, this is yeah for all those coming in. And OTB makes a great point. Facts are not essential to debates. Correct. If you're depending on your perspective when it comes to debates, right? And I think I already went through that. But yeah, oh man, I am not, and just come back. Of course, I'm coming back, man. I absolutely love this whole thing. Like, just me as a person. Um, but yeah, going into this, so getting back to getting back to the point, um, we go right the when it comes to the lack of objectivity that you're probably ever going to get from the chat, right? Um, I think, well, not even despite, in light of that, right? I don't know if I said despite or in light, but in light of the objectivity you're never going to probably get in the chat, you should probably not place such a value on the win and the loss, right? Because you already know that a third of it is already like kind of tainted by the popularity of the people in the debate, and whatever, and just that thing, like that sort of like popularity bias, right? Um, so that's just for the people and this is for people who are observing the debate. This is for people who are going to participate in the debate. These are people who are coming forward in the debate, and moving forward, no matter how the judging evolves, right? No matter how objective it becomes, should knockout keep the chat portion of that as 1/3 of the 3-part judge structure that he has. There's two different judges. Sorry, there's two different judges, and the chat. It's never going to be 100% objective, and once again, to reiterate, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I don't think that in the sport of boxing it's ever 100% objective in the judging. In boxing, you do get an objective thing when it comes to a knockout, but even with knockouts, you get a technical knockout option, which can be subjective, right? And even a knockout can actually be subjective. To be honest, like the only thing that is even like whether or not a guy gets counted out can be subjective. So anyway, there's a lot of subjectivity to it. The best thing you can get in the lack of it is a knockout where a guy doesn't get up for like maybe 20 seconds, right? I think that's about as objective of a knockout as you can get. maybe even then you might get a long count. I digress. Or I get stuck in a loophole or in a quagmire. Moving forward, um, taking that into account, I think that we should probably keep our eyes on the prize and express our ego like appropriately, right? I'm not saying like you like subvert your ego or you like you repress it or anything, but like I'll give you my experience, right? So, um, first I debated a guy I never heard of, but apparently has an audience, and I should have known who he was. I went to the when I found out who it was, I went over there to that channel, but apparently I got the wrong guy. They have a bunch of people who contribute to that channel, and the guy I thought I was going to be debated turned out I was debating somebody else. Like I didn't know who the hell that guy was. Point being, other people did, and I don't know if if you know who I am or not, but I have a pretty dedicated group of trolls, right? And that's just because of my wanders in the internet, right? Yeah, I have a bunch of of people who, because of my affiliations with other like Boston communities, have because of my affiliation with LDBC and their definition of what the LDBC is, feel like they are going to become the next LDBC based on their really twisted definition. So we get all these like really ethno warriors that are into these really wild ideas um, about the way that life should be in the worldview. That if and that has nothing to do with like why I joined the LDBC, and if the LDBC was actually on this kind of stuff, I wouldn't have joined. But anyway, it's a different subject. My point being, um, so wherever I go, I have a certain amount of people. Not wherever I go, but based on I am kind of a polarizing figure. Sometimes it is because of my previous affiliations. Sometimes it's just because of who I am. Right? I'm a combative person. I like to argue. That's why this debate series is like right up my fucking alley. Right? So whether or not people bear some sort of personal animus towards me or some kind of general animus because of my affiliations, I have like a pretty like present and vocal and engaged group of detractors like wherever I go, right? So um you'll say, I saw them, I saw the usual suspects in the chat. I didn't say anything about it. That it is what it is. There's nothing to talk about when it comes to it. um but I did notice, regardless of the popularity portion of it, I noticed like kind of right away the lack of the sophistication of the judges, right? And by that I mean I don't know that they listen to enough debates to come up with their own criteria about what they're looking for in a debate, right? I don't know if they were expected to be emotionally moved, or whether they're following an argument, or whether there is any sort of even their own personal guidelines for success, right? And that does speak to the like I said, it's the debates in this debate formats in its beginning stages, and you know what, um, it's in its beginning stages, and we don't know what it's going to finally look like. But towards that end, like even with the lack of sophistication that I experienced, and what I felt like was a bias in my own debate, right? Like I would like my interlocutor, the guy I was debating against, like his points followed no logic whatsoever, right? The leaps of logic he made, and I pointed out, went on like fell on deaf ears, right? So to me, it seemed as though logic wasn't the it wasn't necessarily the value by which they were judging the debate. And that's it's not here nor there. That's just the thing that I assumed was happening, right? Because of my level of engagement with debate, it's always been, you make an argument, you put forth your premise, you state your arguments, people try to rebut and knock down your arguments, you address their rebuttals, and if your argument is still sound after it's being rebutted, then your statement should stand. And if it's a if your argument is stronger than your other person's argument, right, then you should win. If their argument is strong, if your rebuttals to their argument knocks down their argument, then that's the way I look at it. It's an argument based thing, right? It's your version of reality versus this other person's of reality. But some people, right, they make it about what the person said. Some judges say they listen to what the debater argues, and they debate within themselves. They don't put the two arguments against each other. They'll be like, "Oh, well, since you said this one thing, I'm going to debate that one thing, even if the guy he's debating never rebutted this thing that you're on," right? So, and because there's no uniform standard, there's no way to say that which approach is better, right? I'm just saying that there's different approaches to it. And while this and while we're getting like our arms around this thing and like hurting this cat, tensions may run high, passions may run high, because maybe the topic is near and dear. Maybe the people who are debating like have either really passionate supporters or detractors. But whatever it is, there seems to be, as the series gets more popular, there seems to be people seem to be more vocal about the outcome, like about the result, about who wins and loses. And the reason why I started this whole thing, and whoever listens to this whole thing, shout out to you, because I know I this is always like sort of stream of consciousness for me. Point being, we're herding cats. It is a process that we're in, and it is more about the entertainment at this point and the education at this point, and whatever it is you think is a fact, and no matter what people say is a fact, in the YTBC, you should always do your own verification. If BFTB says there's 175 people in the Hall of Fame, and you do a count of the modern Hall of Fame and you come up with 153, that's your personal edification, right? If Keon talks about some AB eating stripper pussy, maybe go through and do your fucking thing and see if, and we can do that right now in real time if you really want. I really don't care. I'll live the three people who are like actively participating to say whether or not we want to find out on live whether or not AB was eating stripper pussy, or maybe you want to just confirm your own coming across that story. Point being, you'll hear a lot of stuff that people presented fact, and they may think that it is a fact, but they may be wrong. So you always want to do your own research and always cite your source. But yeah, debating and judging debates, man, there's never going to be a quintessential thing unless they make it a guideline. Unless they tell you it's about persuasion over truth, then you don't know that if it's persuasion over truth, unless that's a premium you place on either persuasion or truth, right? If they don't give you good judges if they don't give the judges guidelines on which to operate, you can't be mad at a judge's result, whether it is feelings based or facts based, whether it's argument based or whatever the hell. It could very well be that they just don't like the way you talk, right? They don't like the sound of your voice or the way that you argue. It is what it is, right? And they may say something else. I would prefer it if people were 100% upfront, or were even self-aware enough to be 100% upfront about why they do what they do, right? But yeah, it is what it is when it comes to like the result of it. I think while it's getting up to speed, it's still in the training wheel stage. Yeah, like voice your opinions. If we could be respectful of other people's like emotional range and what they also trying to manage in moving this thing forward, it would be like, I think, greatly appreciated by everyone moving, going forward. But also, this thing happens to be occurring in a time where we have no fights, and it seems like when there's no fights to when there's no boxing matches to focus on, we fight even more amongst ourselves. And I think that's a pretty telling thing and something that the YTBC should work on. If you want to speak together with a uniform voice, maybe stop manufacturing and giving energy to like really petty and insignificant conflicts between one another. Right. And then that's it. That's all for me.